These are what are known as DSLRs, digital single lens reflex cameras. Back when we still shot film, they were just SLRs, single lens reflex, and that has to do with the mechanics of the camera. But for this class, we're going to look at the camera, the mechanics of the camera, and how to technically use DSLR cameras to get better compositions. Okay, so I'm using my phone to record this, and then I'll switch and I'll use my camera to record my phone so you guys can see both. This is a Nikon D5100, and the thing about DSLRs is while they're basically roughly shaped the same, their buttons are different from camera to camera. Even I've picked up some Nikons. I've been shooting Nikons for decades. And I've picked up some Nikons and I was sort of like, ooh, I don't know how to use this. So the biggest piece of advice I'm going to give you is to start with your camera's manual. And if you don't have it, you can probably find it online. You want to start there. It's going to tell you where everything is. I'm going to tell you how to use those things, but I may not be able to use or specifically locate where it is on your camera, because every single one of you is going to be using a different camera. And some of you are going to be using a phone app that acts like a camera. So that will be different as well. So it's really incumbent upon you all to be able to know where these things are located on your camera as we talk about them. And you need that manual. It will be a little guide that will tell you, for instance, when we start talking about settings on your camera, these are different. These letters are different on Canon versus Nikon. For Nikon, you can see MASP and auto. But if you look at another Nikon or a Canon, these letters are going to be different. So we're going to talk about what they are, but they'll all be located on a dial here for your settings for your camera. I have a bunch of buttons here on my camera, and those tend to be sometimes different. One back there. This is the viewfinder, and you can see all kinds of reflections in my viewfinder here. So you have the viewfinder that lets you look through. Ooh, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, so it lets you. Ooh, this is hard to navigate, but you see, it lets you look through into your scene. And then this, I'm going to turn this on. And for me, if I push this, it allows me now to see. And the sun is really beautiful out here today. Let's see if we can. It allows me to see without looking through the viewfinder. And honestly, it's a matter of preference. Whether you want to look through the viewfinder that's built into the camera, or whether you want to use the little pad that comes with it. Okay. You're going to have somewhere in your camera, there's going to be an on-off switch and the button that you press to take a picture. And one of the first little tricks I'm going to teach you right off the bat is you don't want to just press this. Whoops. You want to roll. You want to roll your finger over it to press. It takes better pictures that way. Okay. This is my over-under exposure. We'll talk about that. Information. More information. All kinds of good stuff. And I have a wheel here. And this wheel allows me to make it. Turn this on. So I'm in aperture priority, and we'll talk about what that is. But you see, as I adjust the wheel on my camera here, those numbers change. And that's what that wheel allows me to do. And somewhere in your camera you'll have that. Some people, the wheel's up here. Some people, it's, I think, on the side. But for most cameras, it tends to be there. And then I have all kinds of other buttons. This one allows me to view the pictures I've taken. I just took that picture, now I can see it. And then this allows me to zoom in. And I'll show you how to use this to take good photos. And then I also have a menu button over here. All kinds of AV connectors are under there. More buttons, flash. We'll talk about, when we get to lenses, we'll talk about what these are. And then the other side of the camera, turn this off. I have a slot here for my SD card. And you have to have an SD card to be able to record your photos. And it just goes in the... And I'm a huge fan, by the way, of Transcend. I've had some Transcend cards for decades, since they started making SD cards. And they never lose that little tab on the side that other SD cards do. So this is my absolute favorite brand. None of my SD cards from Transcend have ever lost the little tab. And then that just goes in the slot. So you have to have that in there for it to record your photos. Some cameras just won't even take a picture. Like if I take this out, my camera will tell me no SD card. And then on the bottom here is my battery. And I'm just not going to pull that one out, but you'll see I have multiple batteries that you can charge, and they're lithium ion batteries. And if you're doing serious photography, you want batteries that you can, in the middle of shooting out in the field, you want to be able to swap these out without having to worry that you've just run out of power. So I have spares. And those I've had those for a very long time. I've had those as long as I've had this camera. This is where you can attach a flash. It's called a horseshoe. You can put another flash in here. These cameras generally come with a built-in flash. Just that button will pop it up for you, usually. Oops, I think I have to turn the camera on to do that. Yep, and it just got a little flash on it. They're not very powerful, though. And they will drain your battery. So most people that do like wedding photography or anything where you're going to want a serious flash will get a flash that sits on your camera, and it has its own battery source. And it will these little dots allow it to sync with what you're doing in your camera. And on here is just you can see this is the lens. Nikkor is Nikon's standard lens. Nikkor is some of the best glass in the world. The quality of your glass greatly impacts the quality of your photos. So if you can, I guess just the best thing to do is to buy the best glass you can afford. Canon is equal. They're comparable. I don't know there's much difference, but they are the two leading cameras in the world. So this lens is an 18 to 55 millimeter, and what it basically does, as you can see, is, this is 18 millimeter, and we'll talk more about what this is exactly, which is allowing me to zoom wide angle, and then allows me to zoom in, and then now we're starting to be in the range for portraiture photography. And you can see the lens is adjusting. And what happens is there's a series of stackable mirrors in here that or glass in here that allow the lens to zoom. Zoom lenses are not, the quality of the images you take with those is not as good as one with a fixed lens. Let me show you the other lenses I have, just so you can see different lenses. This is what's known as a fisheye. It's a very, very wide angle lens. It's a 10.5 millimeter. It's a fixed photo lens. So when I take pictures with this, it's a really cool lens, but I don't do it very often because it's something you only kind of use specialized. And I can show you some pictures I took with this. This is a fixed lens, so the quality of the glass for this, because there's no moving parts, it doesn't zoom in or out, it stays fixed at that 10.5. Very, very wide angle. I think 8 millimeter is the widest that they now go, the widest you can go. It's really, really far zoomed out, okay? But the quality of these images is amazing because it's fixed glass. And I can take this off with one hand. I'll show you that the fisheye is because it looks like a fisheye. You see it's got a dome on it. And it kind of is interesting. You see how it's warping the world around me? That's the kind of photos it takes. There's a setting in Photoshop that helps you fix that. Okay, so then the next lens I have that is that I use for wide angle shots is my 14 millimeter. I use this lens a lot. It's a fixed millimeter. It's a Rokinon. Very, very good, high quality glass. I love this one. I'll show you some of the photos I take with it, but that is still a very wide angle zoom lens. Okay, and then I have, what's next? And then I have this, which picks up my 55 from my other lens that's on my camera, and it zooms all the way to 200. I'm not in love with this one. I don't use it a lot. I have a hard time with this one. But, you know, it works for that range that you need when you go from kind of portraiture to you starting to zoom in. 200 doesn't get you very close, but it's not bad. And then I bought this off of B&H Photo. It's refurbished. I couldn't afford this brand new. It was insanely these things are like, it's like $1,000 lens brand new. No, more than that. But it's a 80 to 400, and 400 really lets you get in and zoom in close up to wildlife. I have some photos I took of the deer that live in my yard with the 400, and I tried it with the 200. The 400 is just so much better. So for me, it was worth the investment. But again, this was a refurbished one, so I got it for a few $100s rather than brand new for, I think it's like $2,800 lens. It's crazy. And then my favorite lens in the whole wide world is what's called a macro lens. It says micro, but these are called macro lenses. And this one is set at 85 millimeter, so it's fixed glass. And what it does is it allows you to get up really, really close. So you get to take those macro shots, those beautiful macro shots. Okay, and so those are the wide array of lenses that I personally have that go work with my camera, and I have invested over years. This originally came with this lens and this lens as a gift. My brother found it was cheaper for him to buy me a camera than it was to hire a wedding photographer. So I got a camera, he got wedding photos, and I've just kind of added on lenses and equipment over the years. And so what I just wanted to do is start out by showing you that when we start talking about using your camera, the main things we're going to be talking about initially are going to have to do right here on your dial. Okay? So get familiar with that, make sure you understand what those are, and then when you turn this on, make sure you know how to adjust it. For me, it's that scroll wheel. For most of you guys, it'll be a scroll wheel somewhere that allows you to make adjustments, to your numbers. We're going to talk about these numbers and what they are. Okay, so you want to be able to know how to find this information on your camera and get a little familiar with that. Because when we start talking about, and I'll just show you quickly, manual, aperture priority, shutter priority, program, and auto. And every camera has it in that order, I believe. They're just different letters. Okay, we're going to talk about those. We're actually going to mainly talk about these first three. So we're going to talk about aperture priority, shutter priority. So we got to first discuss what aperture is and what shutter is, and how you can use it to take better photos. Because in the first class that you took, 1020, we learned quite a bit about composition. Now we're going to learn the technical stuff to help you get better shots. So that's where we're going to leave this one, and I'll switch cameras, and I'll talk about how to use the camera app on your phone to control your settings.